First of all, I want to thank you all for attending. It's really good being a veteran to see so many people interested in learning about veterans and hiring veterans and everything. I want to start off by telling you a story that happened to me when I first got out of the military way back in 1995. Moved up to Washington State and got called by a recruiter after putting my resume out there. The recruiter told me she didn't really want to be talking to me. Her boss was making her, and went on to tell me that everything I learned and did in the military is worthless and I'm an unskilled, untrained laborer in her eyes. You can imagine how that made me feel after spending 12-plus years in the military. The ugly part is I just spoke to a couple of veterans last week that had the same thing happen to them, and that was just last week in the year 2013. So while some have made strides in understanding military and hiring military, others still don't get it. And so I take my hat off to all of you who, by being here, are showing you want to get it. So one of the big things with military and in general, and a lot of what I'm going to be doing is I preach research first with sourcing always. And so a lot of what I'm doing is basically all the research for you. I'm giving you everything there is you need. One of the things you need to remember with dealing with military and veterans is, we all know Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Reserve, National Guard, but people forget about the Coast Guard a lot. They're part of the military. They are veterans. They go through a lot of the same training that we go through. So keep that in mind. Reasons for hiring military. Over 200,000 service members leave the military each year. 24 million veterans are out there, 11 million over the age of 60. And some of the benefits for hiring military people are we get education benefits. I myself was working for a company a few years back, and they needed me to get some training, and the VA paid for it because I needed it for my job. So it's a pretty good thing to know that it's available. Each type of education benefit is a little different, but it's available. You also get a work opportunity tax credit, $2,400 for an unemployed vet, $4,800 for hiring a disabled vet. You see there's some links that will take you to information that will help explain further about these benefits and more about how to use them and how to get access to them. Making a case to hire veterans, to me, is one of the easiest things in the world, and I've gone down this road many times with employers. You're hiring a veteran, you're getting someone who's loyal, someone who's proven to be loyal, someone who's a hard worker, who's used to learning, because when we join the military, we do basic training to learn how to be a soldier or airman, and then we do AIT, which is our job, and then throughout our career, we'll learn many other jobs, additional duties along the way. So we are used to learning and picking up new skills and stuff like that. We're used to having to work in a team environment. In war, you're in a team, and you don't work well, someone gets killed. You also learn how to work independently, because there are times that's what you have to do. And you can see here a plethora of other things that, while I'm not going to say they're totally unique to veterans, there is little doubt that veterans have these skills. The loyalty, the integrity, and everything. There's no doubt about it. We have these intangible skills that are very important in the workspace. USSERA, the Uniform Service Employment and Reemployment Rights Act. This protects veterans. This applies to all employers, part of the U.S. Department of Labor. It's not the EOC or OFCCP, like it says there, but this is the main law or act or whatever you want to call it that governs hiring and protection of military people, and it's something you definitely need to understand if you're going to hire or work with military people. I give you 2 links down there that take you to places that will explain in detail everything you need to know about this specific act. A very important act. Without it, I suspect we would still be, in some cases, treating veterans like we did back during the Vietnam days. And even when I first got back with what happened with me with the one recruiter. When you talk to a military person, especially someone who's either still in, getting ready to get out, or out within a year or two, rank always comes up. The problem with that for us in the military is a lot of times you'll ask rank and we will say E6 as an example. That's not the rank. E6 is a pay grade, but to us in the military, they're interchangeable. You might ask me my rank one time and get an E6. Next time we might say Staff Sergeant, which is what an E6 is. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, the pay grade can also tell you something about the person. If it's an E, they're enlisted. If it's a W, they're a warrant officer. If it's an O, they're an officer. Enlisted, you think of them as the hands-on workers, day-to-day, getting the job done. warrant officers are highly technical, usually specialized skills, or they're pilots. I mean, they're highly specialized. And then officers are the higher level managers, guys in charge that make those high level decisions. There's a link there that will take you to a place where it will show all the ranks, and they have both the pay grades as well as the ranks for all the military, and you'll be able to look at it and tell what's what. And to help you, I've actually pulled some of it here. So these are the officers. You'll notice the top is a 102, and those are pay grades. And then underneath, whether it's Navy, Marine, Army, or Air Force, you'll see the actual ranks, whether it's lieutenant, junior grade, lieutenant, captain, major, all the way up to General of the Army, General of the Air Force, and Fleet Admiral. Here are the enlisted, same thing. You've got your pay grades up top and your ranks going down. In the case of the top one's Army, and you look at E6, which is what I discussed earlier, and you see Staff Sergeant SFG, and that's their Staff Sergeant's the rank, the pay grade is the E6 part of it. And then here are the warrant officers. Navy, Marines, Army, you'll notice Air Force doesn't have warrant officers, and here's their ranks and what their insignias will look like. On the left side is where you see the pay grade, and then the ranks are underneath the insignias. When talking to military, the big deal is what is their MOC, their Military Occupational Classification. It's basically their job. Over 80% of our MOCs have a civilian equivalent. Each branch of the military may have a different name. For an MOC is the general. In the Army, it's an MOS, Military Occupational Specialty, and so on. The big deal is finding out what MOSC corresponds to what you're looking for. And in this case, we're going to go ahead. Oh, I'm going to have to bring it over here. Sorry, I run dual screen, so I have to bring it here. So this is my favorite site. There's 4 of them I listed that will help you figure out if there is an MOC relevant to what you are looking for and tell you more about it. Like in this case, I'm just going to put finance, if I can spell right, and you push next, and you get all these different listings of MOCs that from different branches that are finance orientated. You get the written, what it is, accounting administrative officer, the branch, or the Army, Air Force, Navy, whether they're a commissioned officer, enlisted, or what have you, and then you get the number designation or number and letter designation of the MOC. For this purpose of here to show you, I'm going to go down to 73Z, which is Finance Senior Sergeant in the Army, and click Next. And this is what you're going to get: Military Occupational Specialty, Civilian Occupation Frontline Supervisor of Office Administrative Support Workers, and then tells you a little more about it. And the reason I like it is because you can do it. If you know the MOC, you can put it in there. If you don't, you just know a word, so you're trying to figure out what you're looking for, you can use it. And it gives some really good information beyond just the standards, beyond just 73Z is this, which I think is really good. I've also supplied 3 other links. It's good to, I like the first one, but I wouldn't be opposed and usually do use all of them because each one gives a little bit different information, and using them all gives you a good complete picture. When talking to military people, you also got to deal with federal jobs. I'm not going to go too much into it, but this site here will take you to occupations associated with federal jobs, and it's just something to keep in mind because some people, ex-veterans, may now work for the federal government, and this will help you understand a little better what's going on there. When talking to the military veterans, especially those been out 2 years or less, you're going to hear about certain documents. You're going to hear about DD-214, which is basically their separation paperwork. It's going to tell you what their discharge was, what rank they were, how long they were in, a little bit about some training, a little bit about some awards they won, and stuff like that. You're also going to hear PQR, Personal Qualification Record. This is basically the DD-214 on steroids. Everything's there. It'll list every assignment they had, every rank they've ever held and when they got promoted. It'll list every civilian, every military education they have, every award they have, their physical training tests, their rifleman rankings, everything. It's a pretty good document, and it's a good document when you're talking to a military person who maybe hasn't put together a resume yet, or maybe is still struggling with correlating over to civilian. This is a document that you're going to want them to have in front of them if they have it, when you're talking to them, because they'll be able to look at it and tell you if what you're looking for or what you're thinking is there. And more importantly, you can say, well, what does it say for your MOC? And they'll be able to, they may have had 4 different MOCs. They may not remember them all, believe it or not, and they'll be able to tell you, and then you can look it up and know more about it. The ACE transcript is basically a transcript done by an organization that takes all the military training and tells you what credits it would be worth at what level at a college. So if you were a 68 November, which is an avionic mechanic, it may say 68 November gets 3 credits in aircraft maintenance at the bachelor or bachelorette level. And it's a good document to have because it allows the military people to know how close they might be to getting a degree, because most times if you take that to a college, they're going to give you college credits for it. It also lets you know just how much training they really have and how close they are to a degree, which can be important, especially if they're a full-time employee of yours already and you want to help them get promoted or help them get to that next level. Hang on a minute here. I have to go back to this one. There we go. Sourcing. Like with anything, and I've already stressed it, research comes first. You got to do your research. It's not simple, well, I want a military person, I'll just put in military. That's great. It's not going to get you everything. It's going to get you some things, but not everything. So some of the military search terms you can use, obviously, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, National, blah, 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 and you can see them there. Some of the organizations you might want to use in a string might be VFW and DAV. Now, it's not to say everybody that works for them are veterans, but a large majority of them are going to be veterans. I provided a link with a whole bunch of organizations that are service organizations for veterans, and like I said, a large preponderance of people that work there are going to be veterans. Who else to help a veteran but a veteran? That's the way it goes. Other words you might use, veteran, obviously, military. USMC, now that's the acronym for the Marine Corps, United States Marine Corps. U.S. Army, acronym for the Army. USAF, acronym for the Air Force, and so on. Other words you might consider using, obviously you use veteran, you want to use that, but the words former, retired, and prior come up a lot in veteran resumes, somewhere on there. Even if they've been out for 20 years and all they say is they were in the Army from this year there or they were in the Air Force, they'll have the word former, retired, prior somewhere in there. We're very proud of our service, and we want people to know about it. I mean, I'm sitting here wearing my veterans hat, which I wear all the time, which, if you've seen pictures of me, I'm always wearing it, or I'm wearing my Army hat, depending on what day it is. And so we will have it on there. You will know we're prior military. It's like a fraternity that just is indefinite. And so somewhere on there, it's going to be obvious. If they are a veteran, former military, it will be on there. I list a link right here, which lists a whole bunch of other acronyms, stuff like that, that you might be able to use. As you know, putting together a search string is all about the search terms. And so, using the right search terms will help you get the right results. Clearances. One of the biggest reasons people want to hire military and veterans, clearances. You can't support the government without a clearance in most cases, and most of us in the military get them. Not all, most, or a lot. Different levels, whether it's secret, top secret, confidential, or one of the plethora of others that exist. This is a link to a place that will explain all the different, will show you all the different clearances, and you can click on it and get a little more information on them, as much as they're allowed to give. I actually went on it when I first found it a year or so ago, and I was like amazed at some of the clearances that were on there that I didn't even know about. And I was like, wow, I never knew that existed. And I spent a long time in the military, and I was in the military intelligence. You would think I would know, but I didn't. Now, what I'm going to do here, or what I did do here, and this is really basic, guys. So please don't think this is it. This is all. I just wanted to come up with something basic to give you an idea. I decided I'm going to say I want an Army person that has Java and a top secret clearance. So I put it together in URL resume, and it's there in front of you. Now, keep in mind, this string is more in line for Bing. If you use Google, you can take out the N. You can use the pipe instead of the or. You can change URL to say subject or title to get more results. You can take out resume and put in CV, spell out curriculum vitae, or put in bio to get more results. You can also put minus job, minus jobs, and minus apply to get rid of some of the junk that may be out there. But again, do your research first. Out there on my blog is a list of all the Boolean operators that there are out there. I update it monthly. Don't be afraid to go out there, use it, and play with it, and come up with different things. Don't be afraid to use all the links I provide so far, and I'm about to provide more, to create a bigger string or to narrow down your string or whatever it takes. This is just really basic, just to give you an idea. And I know this works because I've actually ran this string not more than a week ago and found that 3 or 4 people I actually knew personally. So I know this string works really well. Additional resources. A lot of people work at federal agencies. A lot of military people and veterans work at these agencies. So looking for people working at these agencies is obviously a good thing. And there's a link right here that will take you to a complete list of all the agencies. In addition, you have supporting agencies, companies that support military programs, stuff like that. And you can search for the company name, because odds are pretty good that, you know, if you need somebody with a security clearance, they're probably working there, and a lot of them are going to be military. Not all, but a lot of them. And this is a list of all of the top 100, as you can see, of the technology companies that are support agencies for the government. Another thing, and this is one of the biggest things to keep in mind when you're thinking about hiring military and veterans or getting involved in hiring military and veterans. Every base or installation should have a transition office. Should. And if they don't, that's because they're close to a bigger base or installation that does. And the idea behind that transition office is to help train military people to join the civilian ranks, to help them write resumes, to help them look for jobs, and to help employers find veterans. Here's a link that will take you to a place where you can find your local transition office. Work with them. I've worked with the one up here many times. Outstanding. Just fantastic. And they've always been helpful with posting jobs, with finding people, with whatever. If you know, and it's a good thing because it allows you to get a feel, because the people that are running it are probably military or veterans. And in my case, they allowed me to come out and do a presentation to help them write resumes. I went on post, and they happened to be having a job fair, and I stopped by, and the guy that ran it knew me and asked me to stay and talk to the veterans about resumes. And it was good, because you got to get your name out there. Like I said, we are there are a lot of us, but we're tight-knit. We talk. And if you help a veteran, it will get around. If you don't, that'll get, or you hurt a veteran, that gets around. It's in the age of the social sphere, and you have Glassdoor and everything, and everybody knows what everybody thinks of everybody else. Well, we as veterans have been doing this for years. We've known about, we've talked amongst ourselves for years, even before the social sphere came into existence. So, it says sourcing part 3. I'm not sure so much the sourcing as this is other ways to points of contacts to get in, to help hire and stuff with veterans. One-stop career centers, again, that's the local, just like I just talked about, and there's another link to go and find the one nearest you. It's a different link than the other one. Veteransuccess.gov is a great place to go. It provides veterans a place to post resumes. Employers can post jobs. There's links to vocational rehabilitation and employment, which is something that as an employer we need to keep in mind, because some of these veterans are going to have disabilities, and though you can't ask that, they're going to have them. And just being familiar with all that stuff is a good thing for you. The Warrior Transition Command Employment Education and Training website. This place actually can help you learn about the education programs, learn about internships for the federal government, and can also help you with some of the other things dealing with, wounded veterans and disabled veterans. You got the Helmets to Hard Hats. I'm sure you've all heard of it, and the Helmets to Hard Hats Wounded Warrior programs. You've all heard of those. Those are great programs to get involved with, because when it comes down to it, and I say it later in this presentation, if you really want to get involved in hiring vets and you want to be known as an employer of choice for veterans, you have to get involved in these programs, not just, not just to hire people, not just to post your jobs, but to show that you really care. So Army Career Alumni Program, ACAP, I was actually involved in this from the very beginning. It actually started 1993, I believe, is when we started up. It's more for Army, as it says, but it does the same thing as the others. It helps veterans learn how to write resumes. It'll help them learn how to post their resume, how to apply to jobs. It'll allow you to post jobs, allow you to come in and talk to veterans. I remember before I got out that, and I'm not going to name the company, we actually invited a company to come in to speak to, because we were at Fort Rucker, which is aviation. This was an aviation-oriented company, to speak to about 300 soldiers that were getting ready to get out. And it was fantastic. And if I remember correctly, about a third of them ended up getting hired by that company. So it was really a cool thing. But these types of things are the things that you can do if you're really interested in really stepping forward to hire veterans. There's employer partnerships with the Armed Forces, which is operated by the Army Reserve, so you need to get hold of your local Army Reserve office or your local transition office to get involved in that. And it lends assistance to those looking for jobs and to employers ready to hire former service members. Almost all of these programs that are actually involving the government and the military, they all say helping employers hire former service members. But when you get involved, you're going to learn. It's not like they're just going to say, post your resume here, or here's a guy that can do the job. They're going to actually help you understand military people, help you understand the way we think, the way we do things. And, to this day, I still say yes, sir, no, ma'am. I mean, you could be a 10-year-old kid, and if I don't, if you just get me out of blue, I'm going to say yes, sir, no, or yes, ma'am, just because that's the way I am. To this day, I still salute sometimes without even realizing it. And I've been out since '95. Once it's in you, it's in you. And so you need to understand that about military people, and these types of resources will help explain that to you. You got National Resource Directory Partnership for DOD, Department of Defense, DOL, Department of Labor, Veterans Affairs, offers vetted resources to employers. So there's programs. You can get hold of your local offices. The Army Reserve Employer Partnership Initiative, which is a little bit different than the other one, but does the same thing. Mentorship. Now, here's a biggie, and I'm going to show you another mentorship program later on. If you are an organization that doesn't hire a lot of military or just can't for whatever reason, but you still want to contribute, you still want to give back, shall we say, these are places you can go to help, to where you, as an expert in the civilian world of whatever, can mentor veterans getting out, whether it's about just what's it like in the civilian world, to what's it like to be a finance person in the civilian world, to whatever. These are places you can go and do that. And in some cases, they actually do set it up to where you can post jobs and you can talk to people that way as well. So it's a really good resource. Hiring Our Heroes career events, this one down here. Great website. Basically, if there is a job fair for veterans, it's going to be there. And all you got to do is go in there and look it up and find the nearest one to you. It'll say it. There's usually a contact person. You can contact that person and see if you guys want to get involved in it. Military job boards list. I'm not going to go through them all because there are a plethora of them. Sorry, I like the word plethora. I don't know why. Job opportunities for disabled veterans. Enough said. Jobs for vets. Job Central. Recruit Military. Helmet to Hard Hats. Vet Jobs. All of them are great places where you can go, post jobs, find resumes, find resources that will help explain to you about hiring veterans, and also find information about what is out there that the veterans are reading to help them get ready to be hired in the civilian workforce or continue in the civilian workforce if they're already out. And I would read some of that stuff, because that kind of stuff will help you understand a veteran, help you understand where they're coming from, and help you understand the hurdles that they've gone through or will go through, like what happened to me and is still happening, and other things. So don't just look for the stuff to help you hire. Read some of the stuff that's there to help veterans, because it will definitely help you understand them better. A couple more, 100,000 Jobs Mission and postmilitaryemployment.com. You'll see there, I have a link on my website, search authority at weebly.com, vets. It's the page about vets. All these links are there, and some more that I've recently found. It gets updated literally almost daily sometimes as I find new stuff that I think is interesting to help veterans and to help companies hire veterans. Some additional information, Rally Point, Fed Vets, military.com, TAOonline.com. All these will provide you information that will help you understand more about hiring vets, understanding vets, hiring vets programs, as in the case right here, and everything you need to know, and probably a whole lot more. Of course, we got the clearancejobs.com, which I talked about earlier, to post and search people with clearances. It's not just about veterans, because there are civilian people with clearances, but a lot of them will be veterans, so that's another site to keep in mind. Do's, don'ts, best practices. These two links, of all the ones I've looked at, seem to be two of the best links I've found with best practices for hiring military, for military programs, and things like that. Both of them are outstanding. They answer a lot of questions. They make it very simple for you, and I highly recommend you looking at them and reading them. Questions to avoid. When you're talking to a veteran or military, there's certain questions you need to avoid, just like you don't ask somebody what nationality they are or what their race is or religion or anything like that. There are certain things with military you don't ask. What type of discharge did they receive? Unless it involves a security clearance, one, there's no reason to, and number two, yes, the idea is to get an honorable discharge, but not everybody does, and there are reasons behind it, and they're not always necessarily because the soldier screwed up or did something wrong. There are other reasons why it could have happened. And if you don't know the who, what, where, when, how, and why behind it, you will snap to a judgment that could be wrong. And if you decide, well, if they have other than honorable, we're not hiring them, that's kind of a type of discrimination. Well, it's not kind of, it is. And so you need to be careful. So unless you need them to have security clearance, there's no reason to ask. National Guard Reserves. If you see on the resume, LinkedIn profile, wherever they're there, you can't ask them if they're going to be called up for duty anytime soon. Basically, you ask that, and then you don't hire them, and basically you're discriminating against them because they might get called up for duty. I mean, that's the way it will appear, and there are rules and laws against it. The next one is pretty big, and I don't think needs a lot of explanation, but I'll kind of go through it. You can't ask them a question that's going to lead them down the road of letting you know if they have a disability. Pardon me, excuse me. And basically, I don't think I need to explain why. I mean, if they're a disabled vet, they're a disabled vet. You can't ask because then you get in trouble for discrimination against not just a disabled person, but a disabled veteran. So hopefully this helps you about some of the questions to avoid. Additional considerations, and I spoke about this earlier. Keep in mind, it's not just about hiring a veteran. It's about helping a veteran. When you hire a veteran, you're getting the loyalty and all the stuff that goes with it, but you're also getting someone who, for a large percentage of their life, have been living and working with the idea that they're going to give up their life for their country if need be. They're different. We're different. And you've got to be prepared for that. And like I said earlier, we are a small community. We talk. I talk to hundreds of vets every week, sometimes every day. And we talk. I hear about what happens to them with certain companies. And obviously, if it's not good, I'm not going to go helping the company. You hear about Marines and the Army don't get along with this, don't go. And in a way, it's kind of true. There's a little bit of a rivalry there. But, there's a song by Charlie Daniels where he talks about America and about how we might fight amongst ourselves, but outsiders better leave us alone. Well, it's the same with the military. We take care of our own, whether you're Army, Air Force, Navy, it doesn't matter. And we talk. And, now in the age of the social sphere, it's even easier for us to talk. So, remember, it's not just hiring, it's helping. Even if that person's not a fit, do something to help them. Hey, you should go to this site. This site's a good place for what you do. They can help. Something so that when that person leaves, they leave feeling like, wow, they care. That's a place I wouldn't mind working for. That's a place I would recommend to some of my vet friends. Now, when hiring a veteran, you need to remember that some of them may have additional commitments. Now, granted, you can't ask at the time, but once they get hired, it's going to be semi-obvious. And you need to understand that those commitments could require them to be gone for 1 week in a month, which doesn't affect work, but a couple of weeks a year, which could affect work, and they could get called up at any time. The USSERA will help explain to you what your legal obligations are. But the question is, and I'm going to say this again later, is do you want to do the minimum or do you want to do the maximum? Do you want to be a guy that has to follow, or a company that follows the rules, or a company that genuinely wants to be an employer of choice for a veteran? One of the best programs out there, and I'm not going to name the company, has to where if a military person gets called up, they will pay their full-time salary for up to 5 years. That's way beyond what the law says. But for 5 years, that's just incredible. They are a, no doubt, employer of choice for hiring veterans because they understand, they get it, and they want to go beyond the minimum to take care of a veteran. Now, as I alluded to earlier, if you're a veteran or you just want to do more than just be working for a company that hires veterans, you can become a Veteran E-Mentor Leadership Program person. The link's there, I am one. And basically what it is you put yourself up there, you explain what it is you can mentor about, whether it's leadership, whether it's a particular job, whether it's just what it's like in the civilian world, and veterans will find you, connect with you to help them, you know, and different things. In my case, usually it's involved writing resumes, posting jobs, maybe if I have connections in certain companies, stuff like that. But it's good because you're helping them. And one of the biggest things for a veteran is the longer they were in, pardon me, the longer they were in, the longer it'll take for them to assimilate into the civilian world because it is different. We don't salute in the civilian world, although I'm sure some managers would love it. We don't. You know, the yes sir, no sir, the yes ma'am, no ma'am is a little bit different. Things aren't as black and white as far as right and wrong sometimes. There's a lot of, there's differences. You know, and mentors really make a big difference for us to assimilate into it. This is something I put together not too long ago, as a matter of fact. It's a framework, a very high-level checklist for creating a veteran military staffing program. Very high level, so please keep in mind I'm not getting too much into detail. The first thing you want to do is research all the laws, policies, procedures relating to hiring veterans. You got to know the framework that you need to work with and the rules you need to work with them before you can even work in it. You need to decide what things you're willing to do above and beyond what the law says, like the example I just used of paying someone. You need to decide, are you just going to do the minimum or are you going to do a little more? You need to do the research to see what MOCs correspond to positions within your company. It's a waste of time for you to try to learn every MOC when there's only maybe 15 or 20 that might be relevant for you. You need to kind of know that. And the reason that's important is because certain MOCs are trained at certain locations. Certain MOCs have a large population in certain locations. And, you know, like the avionics, it's all trained in Georgia. So those are things to keep in mind. Contact your local transition officer and work with them. Said it probably 4 times in this presentation, and I'll say it again. Big, huge. They've already worked with companies that have already done what you're trying to do, and they will have some ideas about how to do it, and working with them is the quickest way to get your name out there, the quickest way to get involved. Identify sites and events worth participating in based on location and likely population of the veterans that fit your openings, which is what I just alluded to about the MOCs. You want to look through all these sites I've given you that allow you to post jobs and stuff like that, and kind of breeze through them a little bit and see what the population for the MOCs are. Some sites seem to cater more to certain MOCs than others. Security clearance is not a security clearance and all that. So you want to keep that in mind because you can't be involved in all of them. It would just cost too much or it would be too difficult or too hard to keep up, whatever fits. So you want to make sure you're targeting the right ones. Events, same thing. If there's an event being held in Seattle and you need avionic people, well, there are avionic people up here, but not a huge population of them comparatively speaking to, say, Georgia or to Fort Rucker, Alabama, which is the home of the Aviation Corps. And avionics goes to the Aviation Corps, just as an example. You need to brand your company as a veteran-friendly company. Social sphere, the easiest way to do it. Getting involved with the local transition office, another way to use it. Getting involved with local veterans organizations like the VFW and stuff. It's an easy way to do it. But most importantly, and I can't stress this enough, hire the right people to create, work, and manage this program. and it would be really good if one of them, at least one of them, was a veteran, because, like I've said before, veterans tend to be easier to understand veterans. And so maybe this is my little pipe to guarantee a veteran gets hired. I don't know, but it's the truth. You need to hire the right people, and one of them being a veteran is always a good thing because, you know, sets the stage. And wow, I got through this really quick. I talk fast. There's my contact information. If anybody wants to contact me to get a copy of the presentation, I will send you a link to it. If you have any questions, I'm always available to answer them. I'm still getting questions from the SourceCon back in February, where I presented on military hiring, and from the one in October of last year. So I don't mind answering questions at any moment in time. Just email, phone, whatever floats your boat. And let's see, we wanted about 20 minutes for questions, and I'm pretty close to that, so that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Dean. Really good presentation. I do have a few questions that came in, and I want to kind of filter them all together for you. There was a common thread amongst the questions about being able to have access to this presentation, and not only can you get it through Dean, which you will receive, you'll also receive email follow-up from us as an attendee with links to Dean, to his presentation, and to a rebroadcast of this presentation so that you could take notes on it and watch it over and over again if you like. We make that all available through recruiting blogs, and we will provide access to everything that Dean showed you and to all of his links. So please look out for that email that'll come from us. Dean, a couple questions here for you. I think some really good ones. One of the first ones I received was, what are some of the most common, I guess, MOCs that are coming out? I mean, what are the busiest / most common frequent, occupations that they're coming out looking for, or is there even anything along that line that you can measure?
You mean what is the veterans getting out of the military? Is there the most common MOCs that are coming out of the military?
Yes, I guess. Yeah, yes, exactly. Thank you.
The answer to that question is there really is no way to know that for 100% sure. And the reason for that is, number one, remember I said earlier in the presentation, you get your primary job, but then throughout your years in the military, you may get a secondary and a third. As an example, I was brought into the military at the 68th November Avionics, but I ended up becoming a 71 Lima, which is basically an HR administrative person, and then becoming what was a 73 Bravo. I know it's changed, which is an HR person. So and then I also held an MOS of 68 hotels. So I've held 5 different MOCs. So that's why it's really difficult to tell what that population is, because you got people that will hold 3, 4, and 5 MOCs in their career. You'll have people that only have 1. I can tell you that what little bit I know just from my own experiences is that finance is going to be big. The HR people are going to be big. Believe it or not, networking people are going to be big. There's always people getting out with network skills, going in with network skills. Those are 3 job classifications that I see a lot of people coming out. One of the best ways to really know this, though, is keep an eye on your advertising you see from the military, and where if they happen to mention a job, go to your local military or veteran place where they're trying to bring people into the military. I forget what it's called right now for some reason, and ask them what MOCs are they most looking for. Because if they're most looking for them, the reason is because a lot of people got out with it.
Okay. Some other good questions. We have one here by Melanie. She said, we do a lot of part-time employment near military bases and would love to hire not just military but their spouses. Would you recommend we go? Where would you recommend we go to reach out to this demographic?
Same places for the veterans. Believe it or not, all these veterans programs also help veterans' families, spouses, especially local transition offices.
Excellent. Okay. And Isaac had a question saying, for National Guard and reservists, is it okay to ask for their schedule ahead of time?
You don't want to ask for their schedule until they're hired, because if you do and then you don't hire them, it can be construed the wrong way. It's in most cases, in every case that I've dealt with, once we hire them and they know it's a 40-hour day, whatever, they usually at that point will almost always let us know, hey, just to let you know, this is when I'm doing this, is when I'm doing this. But whatever you do, you don't ask until they're hired, because if you do and then you don't hire them, it just doesn't look good, and I can guarantee you legally someone's going to be looking into it.
Okay. Two different people asked the question. It's very similar, actually three. Joan, Kathy, and Andrea, and I'm going to answer it. I'm going to put it all together into one. It's regarding healthcare. There's a little bit of differences. So one's asking, are there any websites or avenues you suggest that are specific to sourcing physicians from the military?
Not that I'm aware of. That's not to say there isn't. Just I'm not aware of them. But I do know that all these websites that I've discussed with you and do have people getting out of the military who are physicians. And I know that, but what I would highly recommend is the local transition offices, because they're going to have information quicker than anybody else. And especially physicians, you got to understand, physicians getting out of the military, they don't last long. They get gobbled up usually by the VA, Veterans Administration, usually by the VA hospitals. So that's something you got to keep in mind. You're going to be basically fighting against them going to help veterans, which I guarantee you that's where they're going to want to go first, unless there's just some huge difference in something. But yeah, those sites I gave you will definitely help you with that, but the local transition offices would be the best place to go. All physicians are going to be officers, and so the local transition offices would be the best place to go. You may also want to, and I forget what link it was, one of the links actually will take you to a link that will tell you where the training is for these different MOCs, and contacting the local transition office to that site would be a great place to go. The thing also to remember with military guys is if you join the military, when you get out of the military, technically you get sent back to where you came in, but the military is not opposed, especially if it's for a job, paying for them to go somewhere else within reason. So like if I get out of the military, when I get out, say it's in Alabama, but I joined the military in Washington, technically they pay to fly me, my family, everything back to Washington. But if I got a job in, say, New York, because it's no more, it actually would be less expensive and more likely because it's closer, they would be more than willing to pay to send me there instead. So that's something to keep in mind. I just had a friend of mine who just got out who did that. He actually joined in California, but he got a job in Virginia, and he got out of the military from Florida, and so they shipped him and his whole family up to Virginia free. I mean, well, not free. The military paid for it, which is a huge benefit for employers.
Very good. And
Sorry about that.
No, that's good. There's also a question that kind of goes along with that. You did provide, I believe, a link. Can you just highlight it maybe one more time, or if you recall it? How do you get in touch with those local transition offices? I think you provided a website that would list those out for us.
Hang on, I'm going to get to it. Just give me a minute, because I've given a couple different ones, because I wanted you guys to have several.
Thank you.
No problem. I'm just fine. Oh, right here, bottom, where it says Find Transition Centers. There's a great site, and it'll find the transition centers closest to you and everything.
Okay.
And that'll be part of the presentation that you guys can ask for, or that you guys will send out. And if you go to my link on my website for vets, it's also there. So plenty of places to find it.
Okay, and then there was one more related to healthcare. Do you find that there's a lot of recruiting out of military hospitals?
Yeah.
Okay.
There is.
Okay.
And there is a lot. Matter of fact, I'm up here in Washington State, and I know a couple of the doctors there, and they tell me they get probably 4 to 10 calls a week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it costs a lot of money to become a doctor. They're already there, and they've got all the training in the world, and in most cases they've had to do it, well, not most, but in a lot of cases they've had to do it under conditions that no civilian doctor would. I mean, for those of you that have ever watched Grey's Anatomy, there's an ex-military doctor there, and early on he made it clear, I mean, doing surgery on a battlefield or in battle conditions, even Persian Gulf War, there were people that needed surgery and stuff, is by far the worst conditions you can have, far worse than anything you'll see in the civilian world. And these people have done it, and have done it under the worst conditions, and have done it successfully.
And I can attest to that, having recruited both nurses, PAs, and physicians straight from military into civilian roles. Almost overwhelmingly, the feedback I received from the hiring side was just several different things. One, their organization. 2, their willingness to work within teams, which is a requirement. 3, they had real-world experience beyond real-world experience that they could possibly get from other types of hires. Really, a general surgeon coming out of a residency program, even with a few years' experience, is only going to see a certain type of case or cases, even if in the most battle-tested urban areas of our country. But when they go overseas, they really see quite a different amount of cases, and they are uniquely qualified, I think, for more roles, and very sought after from my experience in recruiting them. So that's my 2 cents, and it just translates on down for, of course, for nurses, for PAs, anybody within the healthcare field, as far as that goes.
You look in your area where you're at and see what the demand is for doctors and nurses, and multiply it by a minimum of 10, and that's the demand for military nurses and doctors, mainly because of what he just said. And the fact of the matter is, they're not going to break. They've been in the worst possible. There's no situation you're going to throw at them that they're going to go run into the corner and hide. They're going to take control and get the job done.
Excellent. Well, Dean, it's been a great presentation. I really do appreciate it. I can tell by the attendees that everybody really enjoyed it. So everyone, you will receive an email from us with follow-up on all of this information. So if you couldn't get it all jotted down, don't worry. You will have an opportunity to do that. We thank you for attending another free recruiting webinar from recruitingblogs.com. And again, Dean Da Costa, sourcing expert extraordinaire, thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you, and thanks to everybody for taking the time to help our veterans.
Thank you. Thank you. Talk to you again, Dean. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.